Death can come in unexpected ways. In this video, we'll look at 5 more real stories of people who died in extremely unusual ways. From bizarre accidents to moments of carelessness, these tragic events highlight how unpredictable life can be. Join us as we explore these real-life stories and the strange circumstances that led to such tragic ends. It was August 25, 2010 in Daejeon, South Korea. A 40-year-old man, whose name remains unknown, was navigating his way through Seodaejeon Najori Station. This man was physically disabled, relying on his electric wheelchair for mobility. He had just missed an elevator by a narrow margin, and frustration quickly turned to anger. What happened next was captured on CCTV and later became an example of the dangers of acting out in anger. The man arrived at Seodaejeon Najori Station around 9:45 p.m. He was in a hurry to catch the elevator, but it closed just as he approached. The elevator had left without him, sparking immediate frustration. The station was busy, filled with commuters, but no one could foresee the tragic event about to unfold. In a fit of rage, the man rammed his wheelchair into the elevator doors. The first collision occurred just seconds after the doors had closed. He hit them hard, but they didn't open. The CCTV footage shows him backing up his wheelchair and ramming the doors again, this time with more force. The second impact was stronger, causing the right door to start to tear away from its frame. Despite the obvious damage, he didn't stop. He backed up once more and charged at the doors for the third time. This final collision was too much for the weakened doors to withstand. Both doors lifted from their tracks, and the man, along with his wheelchair, plunged into the empty elevator shaft. The fall was devastating. The shaft was deep and the impact was fatal. Emergency services were called to the scene, but there was nothing they could do. The entire incident was over in a matter of seconds, yet the repercussions were significant. The footage from the CCTV showed a clear sequence of events. The man's actions were deliberate. His frustration had turned into a reckless attempt to force open the doors. What was initially a moment of impatience escalated into a tragic accident. News of the incident spread quickly. It was covered extensively in South Korean media and even made international headlines. People were shocked by the event and saddened by the man's tragic death. However, there was also a sense of disbelief at the man's actions. The incident was bizarre and disturbing, showing the potential dangers of acting out in anger. This tragedy prompted a review of safety measures in South Korean public transportation. It was discovered that the elevator doors were not as robust as they appeared. Elevator doors are designed to be relatively weak to allow for emergency rescues, but this also made them vulnerable to severe impacts. In response to this incident, new safety regulations were introduced. Elevators in public transportation facilities, particularly those used by disabled individuals, were retrofitted with stronger doors. Warning signs were also posted, advising against leaning on or ramming the doors. These signs were intended to prevent similar accidents in the future. After his death, the man was awarded the Darwin Award. This award is given to individuals who die or sterilize themselves in an extraordinary, idiotic manner, thereby improving the human gene pool by eliminating themselves from it. The man's deliberate and repeated ramming of the elevator doors was seen as a clear example of such behavior. While some saw the award as a harsh judgment, it underscored the avoidable nature of the tragedy. His actions were intentional and reckless, leading to his untimely death. This incident raises several important questions about human behavior and the consequences of uncontrolled anger. The man's immediate response to missing the elevator was to lash out violently. His actions were not rational, and the consequences were fatal. Anger can cloud judgment, leading people to take actions they wouldn't normally consider. In this case, the man's anger drove him to repeatedly ram his wheelchair into the elevator doors, despite the obvious risks. His actions were a tragic reminder of the need to manage emotions and think before acting. It was a chilly morning on January 21st, 2023, in Gouda Springs, Kansas. Joseph Austin Smith, a 32-year-old plumber from Wichita, was setting off on a hunting trip. Known for his love of the outdoors and hunting, Joseph was also a passionate musician and a beloved family man. He often shared his adventures and daily life on social media, where his humor and kindness shone through. That morning, Joseph was accompanied by his loyal dog, who was more than just a pet. He was a part of the family, Joseph's pickup truck was packed with hunting gear. In the back seat, a loaded rifle lay alongside the other equipment. Joseph had just settled into the passenger seat, ready to go on a day filled with the promise of the hunt. At around 9:40 a.m., the unthinkable happened. His dog, moving around in the back seat, stepped on the rifle, causing it to discharge. The bullet struck Joseph in the back, and he died instantly. The Sumner County Sheriff's Office responded quickly to the 911 call reporting the incident. Deputies arrived at the scene within minutes and immediately began life-saving measures, but it was too late. Joseph was pronounced dead at the scene. The investigation revealed the tragic sequence of events. The dog had accidentally triggered the rifle, causing the fatal shot. The news of Joseph's death shocked the small community of Gouda Springs and his hometown of Wichita. Friends and family were devastated by the loss of a man they described as kind, funny, and always ready to brighten someone's day. His former boss, Chris Brown, who owned Brown's Plumbing Services, remembered Joseph as the most unique individual I have had the pleasure of meeting. Chris Brown started a GoFundMe campaign to help Joseph's family with the funeral expenses. He wrote heartfelt words about Joseph, highlighting how he could make everyone laugh even on the toughest days. "Joe always had something to lift our spirits," Chris wrote. The campaign quickly gained support, raising over $19,000 to help Joseph's family during this difficult time. Jessica, a colleague and friend, echoed Chris's sentiments. She described Joseph as a truly amazing man who had a natural ability to make people smile. Every time he walked through the door, he would make someone smile. "Joe is going to be dearly missed by so many," she wrote. These tributes were accompanied by numerous photos of Joseph, showing him performing on stage with his guitar, smiling with friends and family, and spending time with his beloved dog. Joseph's sister, Kayla Bing, shared her grief on social media, posting several images of her brother and expressing her sorrow. "Maestro Joe, a virtuoso with a funk soul. It wasn't supposed to be you, brother," she wrote. The photo showed a man full of life, with a passion for music and a love for those around him. The incident also brought attention to the rare but real dangers of accidental shootings involving pets. While such occurrences are uncommon, they remind people of the importance of gun safety. In recent years, there have been other notable cases where dogs accidentally discharged firearms, leading to injuries and fatalities. These incidents show the unpredictable nature of accidents and the devastating impact they can have on families and communities. Joseph's death left a void in the lives of those who knew and loved him. As a musician, plumber, and family man, he touched many lives with his kindness and humor. His tragic and unexpected passing reminds us of life's fragility and the importance of cherishing every moment. It was February 21, 2004, in Ottawa, Canada. Amir Jinnah, a 20-year-old engineering student at Carleton University, was celebrating his birthday. Known for his intelligence, kindness, and sense of humor, Amir was mature beyond his years, and his friends admired him for it. That night, he hosted a small gathering in his apartment on the 11th floor of 199 Kent Street, surrounded by close friends. The party was lively, filled with laughter and conversations typical of a close group of university students. As the night went on, they came up with a harmless game, a spitting contest from the apartment balcony. However, what started as fun quickly took a tragic turn. Amir, competitive by nature, wanted to win. He believed that running toward the balcony would give him enough momentum to spit the farthest. Relying on his quick calculations of trajectory and velocity, he confidently took his turn. But at around 11 p.m., things went terribly wrong. Amir's momentum carried him past the balcony railing, and in a split second he fell 11 stories to the ground below. His friends were stunned, unable to process the tragedy that had just unfolded. Jason Armstrong, the security guard on duty that night, heard an unusual thud and sensed something was wrong. Shortly after, 2 women burst into the lobby, panicked and begging him to call for help. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Armstrong immediately called 911. Amir's friends, who had been enjoying the party just moments earlier, were now in shock. About 8 of them rushed downstairs where Amir lay. The sight was devastating, and the group, full of young adults with hopes and plans, was suddenly faced with an unimaginable loss. Armstrong, who had known Amir for about 8 months, was deeply affected. He described Amir as one of the smartest and most polite individuals he'd met. Amir had a way of befriending people easily, and Armstrong remembered him fondly. "He was one of the classiest guys," Armstrong said. "I'm really going to miss him." Police quickly arrived and launched an investigation into the accident. Sergeant Joe Simpson confirmed that alcohol had been involved, but stressed that Amir's death was a tragic accident. "Momentum carried him beyond," Simpson explained. "It was a heartbreaking outcome of what had started as an innocent game among friends." Amir's roommate Eric Huang was too distraught to speak about the incident. The apartment, once full of laughter and celebration, was now silent, heavy with the weight of loss. Amir's family was shattered by the news. Just hours before, Amir had spoken to his father, Alnur, and his grandfather. He had recently returned to Ottawa after visiting his family in Belleville. His grandfather remembered their final conversation vividly. When he got to Ottawa, he called and said, "Papa, I'm here, and I'm all right." The news of Amir's death spread quickly, leaving a deep impact on his friends and the Carleton University community. One of his close friends, Troy Lejam, described him as a brilliant and loyal individual. In their grief, Amir's parents wanted to ensure that as many of his friends as possible could attend his funeral in Toronto. Troy and others arranged for a convoy of buses to transport them. "His parents are leading this effort," Troy explained. "It looks like we'll have 2 or 3 buses." On the day of the funeral, Amir's friends gathered at the spot where he had fallen, laying flowers and reciting a traditional Muslim prayer in his honor. It was a solemn moment as they paid tribute to a young man who had touched their lives deeply. Amir's sudden death was a harsh reminder of how fragile life can be. A bright student with a promising future, his life was tragically cut short in a matter of seconds. His friends and family were left to cope with the sorrow and the haunting what-ifs. What if Amir hadn't decided to take part in the game? What if someone had stopped him before he ran toward the balcony? What if the railing had been higher? These questions now lingered in the minds of those who knew him. Amir's story is a heartbreaking reminder of how quickly life can change, and the importance of safety, even in moments that seem harmless. It was 2011, on a quiet night near Luskville, Quebec, a small town about 25 miles northwest of Ottawa. The rural highway was calm with just a few cars driving by. Around 10:30 p.m., 2 vehicles were traveling in opposite directions, along Highway 148. Neither group knew that their paths would soon meet in a tragic way. A Pontiac Sunfire was heading eastbound with 2 young men, a 23-year-old driver and his 19-year-old passenger. They were likely having a normal conversation, unaware of what was about to happen. At the same time, a black Nissan Pathfinder SUV was moving westbound. The driver was a 25-year-old woman from Ottawa, and she had 2 passengers, her 28-year-old boyfriend in the front seat and a 40-year-old man from Gatineau, Quebec in the back seat. They were likely focused on reaching their destination, oblivious to the danger ahead. Suddenly, a 300-pound male black bear wandered onto the highway. It was mating season, and bears often roam outside their usual territories during this time. The bear's timing was awful. The Pontiac Sunfire hit the bear with great force. The car's low height and design caused the bear to become airborne. The bear was thrown into the air like a massive projectile, flying across the road and crashing into the windshield of the Nissan Pathfinder. The impact was devastating. The bear smashed through the windshield, instantly killing the 25-year-old driver and the 40-year-old man sitting in the back. The bear's body continued through the SUV, shattering the rear window before finally coming to a stop. Remarkably, the driver's boyfriend, seated in the front passenger seat, only suffered minor injuries. The scene was gruesome. The SUV was left destroyed with its windshield blown out. Emergency vehicles arrived quickly, and the bear had died on impact and lay motionless nearby. Police and emergency responders worked to secure the area and tend to the injured. Officer Martin Fournel, a regional police spokesman, described the bear as a 300-pound bullet, noting the horrific damage it had caused. The 2 men in the Pontiac Sunfire were unharmed but undoubtedly shocked by the bizarre series of events they had just experienced. Investigators worked to piece together the details of the accident. Alcohol and drugs were ruled out, and the focus shifted to determining how fast the vehicles had been traveling. The speed limit on that stretch of road was 90 kilometers per hour, or 56 miles per hour, and while the exact speeds weren't immediately known, the impact severity suggested both cars were moving at a significant pace. Local authorities pointed out that collisions with deer were more common in the area, but accidents involving bears were extremely rare. Daniel LaRocque, a local hunting guide, explained that during mating season, male bears often wander far from their usual habitats, increasing the chance of such accidents. However, incidents like this remained highly unusual. The news of the accident quickly spread, with media outlets covering the shocking event. Photos of the destroyed SUV showed just how much damage the bear had caused. The community was in disbelief, struggling to process the randomness and horror of the tragedy. The identities of the victims were initially withheld to respect the privacy of their families. As the investigation continued, it became clear that this was a freak accident, one that couldn't have been easily avoided. The sudden appearance of the bear and the resulting collision were tragic reminders of the unpredictability of life. It was July 12, 1997, in Springfield, Virginia. Eric Barcia, a 22-year-old from Reston, decided to attempt a stunt that tragically cost him his life. Known for being adventurous and smart, Eric came up with the idea to bungee jump off the Accotink Creek Railroad Bridge using a homemade bungee setup. What he thought would be an exhilarating experience ended in disaster. Eric had always been known to take risks. He did well in school and was responsible at his fast food job. His grandmother, Lucille Kalinsky, remembered him fondly as someone who consistently got good grades and took pride in his work. Despite his intelligence, Eric didn't fully understand the dangers of bungee jumping. Instead of using professional gear, Eric built his own system using ordinary bungee cords, the kind typically used to hold down luggage or secure items in cars. He carefully measured the combined length of the cords, estimating that it was just under 70 feet, the height of the trestle he was jumping from. Confident that everything would work, he tied one end of the bungee around his foot and secured the other end to the bridge. As Eric prepared for the jump, he likely felt excited and confident. He was about to do something daring, something few would attempt. However, in his excitement, he missed a critical point: bungee cord stretch. When he jumped, the cords extended far beyond the distance he had calculated. Instead of bouncing back, Eric plummeted headfirst onto the pavement 70 feet below. The cords had stretched too far, offering no resistance. Around 2 a.m., a passerby found Eric's lifeless body. The scene made it clear what had gone wrong. The Fairfax County Police quickly arrived and began their investigation. The bungee cords were still attached to the bridge, showing the failed stunt. Police spokesman Warren Carmichael later said, "The length of the cord he had assembled was greater than the distance between the trestle and the ground." This single fatal miscalculation had cost Eric his life. The bridge where Eric made his jump was clearly marked with signs warning people to stay off the trestle. It was dangerous, and for good reason. County spokeswoman Myrnie Fitzgerald emphasized, "It's quite obviously off limits." But despite these warnings, Eric's desire for adventure made him overlook the risks. Many in the community were left puzzled by his actions. One local resident remarked, "I trust a bungee cord to hold my bike, not me." Eric's family was devastated by his death. His grandmother, Lucille, was in disbelief. She couldn't understand why her grandson, whom she saw as smart and responsible, would attempt such a dangerous stunt. Her confusion echoed the sentiments of many who knew Eric. How could someone so bright make such a deadly mistake? Eric's tragic story later became a runner-up in the 1997 Darwin Awards. The award included the police statement about the cord length and pointed out the bitter irony of Eric's intelligence not saving him in this crucial moment. In the end, Eric's death served as a sad reminder of the consequences of ignoring safety measures, no matter how confident or skilled one might feel. His story, though brief, left an impact on those who heard it, a cautionary story for anyone tempted to take unnecessary risks.